Have you ever felt like you've learned so much, yet something crucial is still missing? Like you've read all the books, listened to all the lectures, but you're still searching for a deeper understanding. It's a feeling many of us know well, and it brings to mind a timeless story about a young scholar and a wise master. Once, in a land of mist-shrouded mountains, there lived a young scholar. He was brilliant, ambitious, and had spent his entire life immersed in study. He could recite ancient scriptures from memory, debate complex philosophical ideas, and quote the great thinkers of every age. By all accounts, he was a walking library of knowledge. Yet, despite his vast learning, a quiet emptiness echoed within him. He felt that true wisdom, the kind that brings peace and clarity, remained just beyond his grasp. Driven by this deep-seated yearning, he decided to seek out a legendary master who lived high in the mountains, known not for his scholarly texts, but for his profound insight into life itself. The journey was long and arduous. He climbed steep stone staircases carved into the mountainside, passed through silent bamboo groves, and crossed rushing streams. With every step, his anticipation grew. He rehearsed the complex questions he would ask, the intellectual debates he would initiate, and the ways he would demonstrate his own considerable knowledge to this renowned master. He was ready to be impressed, but also to impress. Finally, he arrived at a simple, elegant monastery, nestled on a quiet peak. The air was still, and the only sounds were the distant call of a bird and the gentle rustle of leaves. He found the master tending to a small garden. The master was an old man with eyes that seemed to hold the depth of the sky, and a smile that radiated warmth and tranquility. He greeted the young scholar not with an air of authority, but with the simple kindness of an old friend. "Welcome," he said, his voice calm and steady. "You have traveled far. Come, sit with me. Let us have some tea." They sat on woven mats in a quiet room overlooking a valley. The master brought out a simple clay teapot and 2 small, delicate cups. As he prepared the tea, the young scholar, unable to contain his eagerness, began to speak. He launched into a torrent of words, a veritable flood of information. He spoke of the philosophical paradoxes he had wrestled with, the intricate details of ancient texts he had memorized, and his own grand theories about the nature of existence and the meaning of life. He talked about justice, virtue, and the path to enlightenment, quoting one famous philosopher after another. The master listened patiently, his expression serene. He didn't interrupt, didn't argue, didn't even nod. He simply began to pour tea into the scholar's cup. The scholar, caught up in his own monologue, barely noticed. He continued to speak with passion and fervor, his voice filling the quiet room. He explained the flaws he saw in other schools of thought and detailed the sophisticated framework of his own beliefs. He was a fountain of knowledge, and he wanted the master to see just how much he knew. Meanwhile, the master continued to pour. The dark, fragrant tea filled the small cup to the brim. But he didn't stop. The tea began to overflow, spilling over the sides, running across the wooden tray, and dripping onto the polished floor. A small puddle began to form at the scholar's feet. At first, the scholar was too absorbed in his own words to see what was happening. But as the stream of tea grew stronger, he finally broke off mid-sentence. "Master, stop!" he exclaimed, startled and confused. "The cup is full. It's overflowing. It can't hold any more tea." He pointed at the mess on the floor, his brow furrowed in annoyance. The master stopped pouring. He looked at the scholar, and for the first time, a gentle, knowing smile touched his lips. He held the scholar's gaze and said softly, "This cup is like your mind. It is so full of your own ideas, opinions, and preconceptions that there is no room for anything new." He gestured towards the overflowing cup. "You come to me seeking wisdom, asking me to show you something new. But how can I give you anything if your cup is already full? How can I show you the truth when you have no space to receive it? The scholar stared, first at the overflowing cup, then at the master's calm, wise face. The master's words struck him with the force of a thunderclap, but a silent one that echoed deep within his soul. In that single, profound moment of stillness, everything became clear. All his years of study, all his accumulated knowledge, all his carefully constructed arguments, they had become a wall, not a bridge. He had been so busy talking that he had forgotten how to listen. He had been so focused on proving what he knew that he had closed himself off to what he didn't. The scholar's face flushed with humility. The arrogance and pride that had fueled his long journey melted away, replaced by a profound sense of recognition. He slowly lowered his head, bowing deeply before the master. The gesture wasn't one of mere respect anymore. It was one of true surrender. He finally understood the first, and perhaps most important lesson of wisdom. In a voice barely above a whisper, choked with emotion, he said, "Please, teach me how to empty my cup." From that day forward, the scholar's education truly began. He learned to be silent, to listen with his whole being, not to formulate a reply, not to judge or critique, but simply to understand. He learned that true wisdom isn't about accumulating more information, but about cultivating the space to let insight grow. He discovered that the greatest knowledge often comes not from speaking, but from being still enough to hear the subtle truths that the world is always whispering. This story isn't just about a scholar and a master, it's about all of us. How often do we enter a conversation, a new experience, or even a quiet moment of reflection with our cups already full? Full of what we think we know, full of our judgments, our past experiences, and our expectations. We want to learn, we want to grow, but we're not willing to make space. We listen to reply, not to understand. We look for confirmation of our own beliefs, rather than opening ourselves to a different perspective. Wisdom, like tea, can only fill an empty cup. The most profound act of learning is often not about adding something new, but about letting something go. It's about having the humility to say, "I don't know," the courage to question our own certainties, and the openness to receive. So, the next time you seek growth or understanding, maybe the first question to ask yourself isn't "What can I learn?" but rather, "What am I willing to unlearn?" What can you set aside to make space for something deeper, truer, and more transformative to flow in? Thank you so much for joining me on this reflection today. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more content that explores the deeper questions of life. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, be well and stay curious.